Okay, so I'm pretty sure that this is going to end up being really long, and to be honest, my life has not been particularly tragic in any way from my estimation, but maybe you or your listeners will get some entertainment from my story. This is going to revolve around three things pretty much exclusively: my perceptions on death, my love life, and art. Well, we really love life stories on this show, so I'm looking forward to this one. I suppose I should state that my point of view and opinions of pretty much every aspect of life has changed so much over the duration of time the story covers. Just for reference, I'm the dude who made this thing, Mumkey, and it's a link to a tweet. I haven't seen this. You sent me some fan art back in January. If you want to see it, it's me as a goat. I'm going to retweet that right now. Okay, cool. If you want to see his painting of me as a goat, go check that shit out.
That's actually really good.
Yeah, how did I never see this until now? I'm glad he sent that to me. Okay, that's retweeted. I guess I'll start from the top. My first realization of the fact I would grow old and die was when I was roughly 3 years old. I remember crying in church the moment I realized this. My mother took me outside where I proceeded to ask her to make sure I don't grow old. She didn't really do anything but hold me. I suppose that's all you really could do in a situation like that, aside from lying to your child, I guess. Well, when you're 3, I think your parents should always lie to you all the time, because you will literally forget about it. Because 3-year-olds are not even human yet.
Well, what are they?
You're not human until you have like
sentience,
like self-awareness, and are able to do like basic math. You're not a human, so.
Yeah, I guess
You concur?
That.
Yeah. A 3-year-old is not a fucking human. You can lie to them. It doesn't matter. Over my youth, I continued to believe in Judeo-Christian conceptualization of God, not really questioning it. In fact, I was quite the zealot from a young age. Did our music end? Continue that music, please. I was quite the zealot from a young age and for the majority of my youth. I would attribute that to the sect of Christianity I was raised under. In some circles, the group I was part of is considered a cult. And after trying to leave it, I tend to agree with that sentiment. I'm pretty sure you've heard of it, but the religious organization I was raised in is known as Jehovah's Witnesses. This religion pushes a pretty strong us versus them narrative, describing those who are not part of the religion as worldly people who will be destroyed in Armageddon, which in their opinion is just around the corner. There's a lot more to all the strange things associated with Jehovah's Witnesses, but I'll spare you from a long-winded description. What this ultimately caused in my life is that I separated myself from my peers in elementary school, middle school, and most of high school. I did this because I was raised to believe that they were all evil people condemned to death, and that I should not associate with them if I wanted to live forever after Armageddon. Eventually, in elementary school, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety disorder, and OCD. The OCD was brought to attention of my mother because of strange door-jangling rituals, hand-washing rituals, repeating the same prayer for hours until it felt right, among other things. The anxiety and depression could be seen in my behavior at the time. Like, why else would a 5-year-old in a middle-class family be despondent, or telling their mother to hide the knives out of fear of self-harm? I don't know where I should put this, but I guess it's worth noting that I was a fat fuck from around 3rd grade until junior year of high school. As I reached middle school, I was eventually in a situation where I had 0 friends. In fact, I used to play marbles with the special ed kids, but even they did not want anything to do with me. What do you mean, even they? I guess along with the whole religion fucking how I viewed people, I failed to develop meaningful social skills or something. I remember these 2 kids pretended to be my friends, and at the time I thought they were, but I was quite literally only there for them to periodically kick me in the groin, laugh at me, and eventually move on. I'm not really sure why I allowed this to happen to myself, outside of just having a low self-esteem, I guess. Something else happened in middle school as well. I started to have sexual urges. Along with this was my introduction to masturbation. I'm getting flashbacks to Elliot Rodger's manifesto. I remember the first time this happened. I quite literally was looking at a sexually attractive anime elf girl on a computer when suddenly my penis started contracting on its own. eventually soiling my pants in the sticky white stuff. Thanks. Eventually, I realized what had happened along with how this fit into the religious framework of Jehovah's Witnesses. I remember having much guilt every time I would masturbate in middle school. Hopefully not inside of the actual middle school building. I assume he meant in this period of his life.
No, in the school.
Well, I've seen it happen before. Why do you think I stopped being a student teacher?
Oh,
The kids couldn't stop jerking off to me. They thought I was too hot. I was disgruntled, disgusted, and other words.
Did you have urges to become a band teacher?
Okay. I eventually came clean to my parents about this. In turn, this started a daily discussion where my mother would ask me if I had masturbated that day. Uh-oh. What happens if you broke both your arms? Which would lead to disappointment and her telling me that if I did not get control of my sexual urges... What? He answered honestly? Don't tell your mom you're jerking off, dude! That we would have to come clean to the elders over this. The elders in the religious group of Jehovah's Witnesses are essentially a council of old dudes that are tasked with directing the congregation. I legitimately thought that this desire to masturbate would end up costing me my life, as it would make me appear impure in the eyes of God. I tried doing Pavlovian techniques to get myself to associate pain with masturbation. That's gonna fuck you up mentally for a while. I remember mutilating my testicles every time I would masturbate as punishment. At that point, why are you still masturbating? For giving in to my carnal desires. I don't really know how dangerous this was or how much permanent damage I caused, but what has been done is unchangeable, I guess. Okay. As I proceed through middle school and on through the first 2 years of high school, I continued to not question this religion. I continued to have a few bouts of depression. I continued to be a fat piece of shit, and I had a few crushes. Of course, since these people I had crushes on would have been classified as worldly people, I did not let feelings for them to grow inside myself, since such thoughts could have costed me my life in the eyes of God. I was introduced to the internet at a young age, but did not start using it for anything aside from flash games until middle school. I eventually ran into the atheist community on the internet around sophomore year of high school, but was too afraid to really dig into it at the time. This was around the same time I dropped from 250 pounds to 150 pounds. When I entered junior year of high school, I enrolled into a programming class. I was introduced to my first atheist at the time. I remember us having long questions on lots of topics. I cringe at the various responses I would give to some of the questions he would ask me at the time. We became friends for the next 2 years. During this time, I started to agonize over my beliefs for the first time. All this stress over death being the ultimate end of existence eventually led to me cracking and getting another label thrown on the heap other shrinks gave me. What happened is described as depersonalization. I guess this is a common phenomenon for people to have. It is essentially where you feel like you don't have direct control over your body. Your senses feel dulled, and you feel like the world is less responsive. It would cause me to essentially shut down for weeks to a month on end, where all I could do was lay in my bed trapped in my own head. I did not understand what was happening to me at the time. I was pretty much convinced that I was becoming retarded or something at the time. Along with this stuff occurring at the time, I was introduced to the group of friends that I continue to have to this day. I feel so fortunate to have them in my life. Among this group is my brother, who has been more of a father figure to me than my father ever was. Hey, I bet my brother Patchy could say that. You know what I'm saying? Hey. What I'm saying is my brother Patchy calls me daddy. Been trying to make him stop doing that.
Where do you think that came from?
And he calls Patchy's GF mommy. It's just weird. And he forgot to bring me a Coke last night too. He's got lots of weird shit going on.
Patchy's GF said, "Say psych right now."
I'm gonna ban you from the chat. Hold up. Okay, where did I leave off at? Junior year came and went as a giant clusterfuck. Senior year was a much more smooth year for myself. I started to find something I wanted to pursue in life. I was introduced to the world of concept art through a game design class I took. My mother was supportive of this endeavor, but I had yet to really know how to actually get anywhere near achieving this goal. I worked several jobs in high school between semesters centered around propane truck maintenance. I eventually realized I should probably think about how I was going to go from odd jobs such as that and toward a career in art and design. So I ended up signing up at the local community college to study art. I didn't really know what I was doing, and eventually, somewhere along the line of a degree, I realized that I had sort of put too much faith in the educational system to get me where I needed to go. That being said, I'm in my last semester of a degree in art currently. This is quite literally only because I got a completely free ride because I was half brown or something. I live in California. You could probably see that for a little while, I almost completely dropped the whole worrying about death and the existence of God for senior year of high school. I think I was just so preoccupied at the time with shit happening that I kind of just forgot about it at the time. Around this time, I signed up to move into a Chinese-speaking congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. This will become important really soon. Okay, so this is where the girl comes in. Every summer in my area, the various congregations come together and have a convention. It's essentially a group of several thousand Jehovah's Witnesses coming to listen to speakers give sermons. During the intermission of the convention that occurred the summer I finished high school, my brother met a girl who both of us added on Steam. I remember telling she's a gamer girl, Biggs.
Uh-oh.
What a rare breed. I remember telling myself that I liked her, but that she obviously liked my brother. Yeah, well, my brother knows how that is. I had to convince Patchy's GF, no, go for Patchy. I've got better fish to fry. She's gonna freak out on that one. I gotta see what her reply is to that one. Say like right now, motherfucker. Did you have
Hashtag exposed.
Are we both out of drinks? Because I could.
Do you want a refill?
I'm really parched. Well, I mean, I'm drinking coffee. I don't need a refill.
I can get you a refill.
Patchy's GF said sorry I wasn't listening. God damn it. Now we're almost done. I'll be fine.
Brother zoned again.
Brothers, I remember telling I would remain cordial, but try to kill my feelings as much as possible. This was a failed exercise. Eventually, I was talking to her over Skype every day about random stuff. I eventually added her to the group of friends that I was talking about earlier. This will be important later. I eventually moved into the Chinese-speaking congregation. I quickly realized that this group was in the same building as her congregations, along with being at the same time in the week. This kind of made me fall into the dumb idea that it was fated or something. I remember giving her an autistic confession letter at some point. I was able to find it by digging around on my old Dropbox, so here it is with the name of the girl removed. Hey girl, I'm sorry for telling you this, but I don't want to regret never telling you, and I just can't bear keeping it inside me anymore. I have felt this way for quite a while now, but I did not want to say anything to you about it because I did not want to make you dislike me or become upset from it, though I don't know if I really was able to hide it in the first place. But here it goes. Oh, here it goes! You know what that's from? No, that's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song. I'm going for Keenan and Kel over here.
Uh-oh.
Keenan and Kel are gonna say Kel and Keenan, but you gotta watch Keenan because Keenan be scheming with a plan or a plot.
Copy striked.
Shit, not again. But here it goes. I've noticed since I met you, I've started feeling emotions I've never felt before in my life that I cannot properly explain. The more I talk to you, the stronger these emotions become. I get a rush of excitement when I get to speak with you, and I feel joy whenever you do anything that affects me in any way. I've noticed that as I live my life, I try to think of things that I can talk to you about so I can hear your opinion on it. I'm sorry, but I have this overbearing desire to talk to you all the time and to get to know you more. I've come to really enjoy your company. I love your personality and I think you are adorable. I'm sorry for telling you this, but at the very least, I like you. I don't expect you to feel the same way. In fact, I'm expecting and prepared for you to not want to speak to me or be weirded out by this. I don't fully understand your situation spiritually or emotionally. I don't even know if you are in a relationship already. You would have thought that would come up on their daily Skype calls, but okay. This is as honest I can be with you. I really like you as a person. Well, he got person zoned. And I hope someday our friendship becomes something more. She gave me the old, I like you a lot, but I'm not ready right now.
Uh-oh. The right now.
Let me guess, she started dating somebody else the week after.
She threw out the hook and got him with the right now.
Me being fucking dumb, I thought I could win her over by forcing myself in her mind by staying present in her life. I remember this limbo state existing for a few months, where feelings started to grow between us, but we never were officially together at any point. She did, however, on the first day of December in 2014, tell me that this would never work and that we should stop trying to make something happen between us going forward. Obviously, I consoled her and told her that I would always be her friend. Of course, I still delusionally held on to hope that all I would have to do is be good enough, and maybe she would change her mind eventually. I was torn up over this for a long while. I guess you could say I never really got over it. The desire to be with her consumed me from the tail end of 2014 through 2015, but much less distinct bouts from 2016 to 2018. From that December of 2014 to sometime in late 2015, I stayed in close contact with her, still messaging her pretty regularly. Obviously, it hurt that she was not with me, and I would have various bouts of false hope. I had all the first love bullshit constantly flinging around in my mind at this time. One thing I did at this point was I got a job working at a car dealership so that I would have a stable income. I did this not because I had to, nor do I think it was the best use of my time, but rather I thought it would make me appeal to her. Near late 2015, I remember the last time I got a false sense of hope. She invited me to her place to meet her parents and her two brothers. I honestly had a great time. I was just so happy to be with her, and I thought I was actually making some progress or something. I remember her, me, and her siblings playing Counter-Strike, as well as, of all things that we could have done, her brothers and I went on a run for like half an hour. One of the main things that gave me a false sense of hope was what her older brother said to me. He said to me that I should consider this my initiation to the family. Like, how on earth else am I supposed to take that? I could go into the minutia of this whole thing, but I probably won't. But along with this whole thing, I did something dumb, not really affecting anything, but making a pain in the ass I would have to deal with later. Her younger brother complained about not having a computer that was fast enough to play Guild Wars 2. I just remembered that this game will be important later. So I offered on the spot to give him a bunch of computer parts to build him a computer. Keep in mind, though, that I only had one computer with good parts in it. I proceeded to drive home, dismantle my computer, drive back, and give him the parts. This, along with a drawing tablet I gave her earlier, comes out to a little over $2,000 worth of computer shit I just gave away in hopes that it would make her like me more. 2 weeks after this, I was let in on something that kind of fucked me. So she, my friends, and I had been playing Guild Wars 2 together ever since I added her into the friend group. I bet you can guess where this is leading. Oh no. I was never interested in the game itself. I just played it because she played it a shit ton, so eventually I stopped playing that game, but naturally she continued to play it with my friends. I guess she bonded with one of my friends over this and came to like him. This eventually led to me getting cucked. Buddy, listen, it's not getting cucked if she's not into you.
Right.
That's not what cucking
You never
is.
had her.
Yeah, you didn't own the bitch. I guess the time scale is what made this fucky. The time span between me being over at her place and her getting with my friend was roughly a week apart. So I would assume she had feelings for him while I was at her house being introduced to her family and all that nonsense. In hindsight, it makes more sense to me what was going on, but at the time I was looking at these events and how humans work with the perspective of a naive conservative Christian. I grew sad, angry, and bitter over this. I remember confronting her over this and saying some pretty ugly things to her, and then proceeding to block her on all social media. I then proceeded to block all my friends on social media. I believe that they all kept this from me, not to protect me, but for some other reason. Currently, I can't really remember the thought process I had that led me to block everyone, so for a couple months, I mostly looked up relationship nonsense between classes and work. This searching eventually led me to places like R9K and early MGTOW groups. I sort of took all their rhetoric hook, line, and sinker at the time. I sort of became the type of person you would think of being on there when it came to what I thought about humanity, women, and relationships. Eventually, I joined my friends again and made amends with the friend who cucked me. It's honestly, today, between him and I, like nothing happened. Along with all this going on, I felt the whole questions about existence coming back into view for myself. As I became less and less fixated on her, I came to realize less and less I actually believed any of the religious beliefs I was raised with. I decided to remain silent on it though, simply because Jehovah's Witnesses tend to ostracize those who decide to not practice the religion any longer. And given I was still going to college and my job wasn't that great, I found it easier to just stay in the religion, do all the rituals involved, and so on. At some point in November of 2015, my coworker, who I had grown fond of, up and died on me. What? Literally died? Or just, well, I hope that was like a metaphor.
Probably not. It doesn't seem
Up and
like
died on me? I remember coming to work the next day and just falling apart. After this happened, I started to think about if this is all I had to look forward to in my life, was a brief toiling for some random company and eventually being cast aside for the next to take my place once I gave out. This got me to refocus on what I was doing with my life. Needless to say, with all the bullshit I had been distracted with, I had not really been giving the whole making an art career thing a good shake. I was just sort of going through school at community college, doing the work for the classes and not much else. I decided to make a goal to transfer to one of the more competitive art schools geared towards entertainment design. The one I settled on was Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. My mother was supportive of this at the time, so I quit my job and started to autistically practice for 14 hours every day for the duration of a year in order to create a portfolio that would get me in there. During this time, I started to post on IC, the artwork critique board on 4chan. I made some friends through there and got quite a bit of helpful and some not so helpful criticism. I became stressed over the whole art school thing as I didn't have the money for something like this, and of course I ran into a gorillion videos on how college is bullshit and all that stuff. What eventually happened was the same issue I had in junior year of high school came up again. I started to have depersonalization episodes. But this time, they would last far longer. The longest one was 3 months. This, of course, caused me to question if I could even handle stress, period, and if I would even be able to do the work necessary to become good enough to become a concept artist after graduating from Art Center. I eventually decided to call off transferring. This was after I had been accepted to the school. After this, I eventually transferred to the local state university, continuing to major in art. I know I made this decision completely out of fear, but I guess that's how I make the majority of my decisions. Throughout my time at this state university, I continued to practice at a similar pace as I did to prepare for that portfolio thing. Over time, I started to realize how little schools have an effect on the progress of an artist developing in comparison to the plethora of methods of achieving the same thing given the current democratization of information. I guess I can say I made far greater strides as an artist by torrenting lectures from living masters, reading books on technique, receiving meaningful criticism from peers I respect, and applying what I had learned to my workflow than I did by taking any college class. There have been so many times I just thought about quitting this whole degree thing, but I always came back to two things. I'm literally accruing zero debt from this, and the other pathetic thing keeping me going was that I knew that the girl from earlier went to this same school. So I always hoped to somehow run into her eventually at random for some dumb reason. She was in the graphic design track there, and needless to say, I never did and have not seen her there ever. The only reason I knew that she went there was because I periodically stalked the only social media I hadn't blocked her on, which was Tumblr. One thing of significance of this block of time, from when I initially set out to get good at art until now, was the fact that I did this with autistic fervor. What this caused was several things. I completely neglected any of my friends and only went outside to go to class or to run. So essentially, from 2016 to now, I lived a life with no in-person social interactions aside from my mother and brother. Because obviously, I was too socially inept to actually talk to anyone at school, and it also didn't help that I was constantly preoccupied with practicing no matter where I was or what I was doing. During this time, I pretty much got into a loop as follows. Wake up, shit, lift weights, eat the daily calories I need to function, practice, run, go to sleep. I'm skipping a lot of the minor breakdowns and whatnot, but I think that most of these were from how much time I was left with my own thoughts. The unnecessary stress of constantly worrying if all this effort was going to be for nothing if I never became good enough, combined with all the time I spent mulling over essential nonsense would periodically get to me. One thing I spent a lot of time doing was listening to podcasts for the whole parasocial relationship electric boogaloo thing, along with public domain audiobooks. It was in this block of time that I ran into your stuff and rapidly burned through listening to all of your videos on all your channels. I still remember listening to all the Is It Kino podcast to help me fall asleep. Well, thanks. I'm glad our show was boring enough it helped you fucking fall asleep. Fall asleep by staving off my own thoughts. Another thing that further defined this time span for me, from 2016 till now, of me trying to get gooder at art, was trying to leave the religion I was raised in. This was actually initially started by what for most people I would assume would be seen as a completely harmless event. My older brother started to date a worldly person. He kept it hidden for quite a while, but eventually my mother found out about it, and by extension, my father. With the input from the elders in the congregation, my father gave my brother an ultimatum of either leaving the girl or being disowned by him. From the time my mother found out my brother was seeing a worldly woman, to the point my father stated this, my mother had made a change of heart. This was mainly from seeing the mechanisms in the congregation working to squeeze her and my father into removing my brother from the family. My father went along with the organization and proceeded to use any means necessary to coerce my brother and mother, and I into submission. I had always been afraid of my father, but at some point I came to fear for my brothers, and my life. There was so many fights during this time, and keep in mind, all I was trying to do at this point was get good at art. There's so many strange things that have happened in recent time, from about mid-2017 till now. Like, I'm talking this 1984 type shit. Like people coming to our house to get confessions from my mother, brother, and I, to random Jehovah's Witnesses that I used to see as close friends, literally dropping their shit and running away from us in public, to these same people taking photos of us in our local area looking for evidence of wrongdoing. And why were they doing all this? It is just the dogma of this dumbass religion. It's such a waste of time and life. Like, Jesus Christ, why the fuck do a bunch of old retired dudes care what a couple of nobodies think? I guess this brings this story to today. My brother is still with the same girl. I only hope the best for them. I'm trying to spend more time with them, my mother and my friends. They all mean the world to me, but I always feel like such a shitty friend, brother and son, because of how distant I seem. I'm still practicing art a shit ton, and I'm finishing up this degree. Was this the guy that sent the goat picture of me at the very beginning?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that was some good fucking art. He must have been practicing for real. That was great. Anyway, my parents eventually got divorced recently over the whole religion thing. I haven't spoken to my father since then, and I don't plan to. I can't really say I hate him for several reasons. I was never really close to him. I mostly felt fear from him the majority of my childhood. I find it also difficult to drum up hatred within myself anymore, period, simply because it seems pretty obvious that we as humans don't really have free will. Our consciousness is driven by so many parameters, such as our environment and our biology, that it seems that the cause of any action with enough research can be traced back through the threads of causality to even before any of us existed. I guess this thinking has permeated every aspect of how I view life, which includes love. I stopped going on R9K sometime in 2017, and even though some of what they have to say may be true, I don't really think they have a clear picture of how humans work. I don't think I have the whole truth on understanding humans myself, but I feel that all of us are just thrust into existence with a random draw of what biology gives us, and we're forced to deal with what we got. Life isn't fair, and it all ends the same whether you're a slave or a king. Life seems to be fundamentally tragic for everyone eventually, so it doesn't really matter if you have more resources or if you're a Chad or whatever the fuck. Everyone has the same basic needs and desires, and I just wish that we could all get along, I guess. At this point, I think I'm trying to get into the business side of doing art commissions, doing art shows locally every so often, and working a job to pay the bills. I wouldn't say I'm happy, but I wouldn't say my life is particularly difficult. I enjoy what I do, but I am constantly reminded that it is all for nothing and that everyone I know and love will soon be forgotten to the passing sea of time. I try to not think about it, but it just hurts so much. I know we all must carry this burden in life, but knowing that we're all facing the same end together does not bring me comfort. As for relationships, I have zero idea what the fuck to make of that. I'm a 23-year-old virgin who has zero female friends, and I don't even know if I even want to be in a relationship ever. I get lonely periodically, but I don't know if it's worth the time investment, along with the fear of rejection that I've been able to avoid for so long. Along with knowing that if I add another person into my life, that this is just another person I will have to eventually say goodbye to forever. I hope you or your listeners got a kick out of my story. Like I said, I don't know how Depression Chamber is. I don't think my life has been all that bad aside from the whole being born to eventually die nonsense, which we all have to face anyway. Well, that went on for about half an hour. That was a bit long for a copy pasta. Yeah. Well, Biggs, my very first thought is, what are your thoughts on do humans have control? The whole
free will argument?
Yeah. I'm not on board with what he's putting out there. What do you think?
What do you think?
I believe in free will 1,000%.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well.
I don't believe in predestined crap like that.
No.
At all.
Whether I punch you in the face right now could be determined by a coin flip. You tell me I don't have free will, I do whatever the fuck I want. I can flip a coin and decide if I punch you or not.